Morning everybody, I hope this finds you well and well, we're well into the isolation period now, day 4 or 5, I'm not sure which it is, funny enough, I haven't been keeping track. So just remember to look after your mental health by kind of creating, doing some exercise, connecting with people. Remember we've got our Facebook page that you can connect to through we've got 2 chat rooms, one solely dedicated to art and the other to just general support and inspiration, and there's quizzes and just a bit of fun happening there. So if you want to join that, feel free, it's just there for you to use. We are going to be running some workshops, or probably more likely videos at this stage about art processes and things like that. There was a request for me to do some live streaming of me painting, but that's proved to be very difficult with the resources I've got. I just can't connect my camera to the computer, and the computer's camera is just kind of too difficult to kind of work with. So I'm using my Nikon here, which is a fantastic camera to do. So and it means I can edit as well. So if I make a bit of a mess, I can sort that out. When the isolation period started, well, an artist, Jacqueline, suggested that we do a workshop where every single day you add to a piece of artwork. So you create a scene, a background, and every day you put something in that scene, and then you just leave it, and the next day you do one more thing and one more thing. So I thought that was a terrific idea. I'm a little bit late out of the gates because I've just had other things to do. But I'm going to be doing the first process of that today, which is going to be putting a background down. Yesterday I did prepare a recycled canvas. It's a bit lumpy because it's a canvas I kind of tend to work on over and over again if I'm just playing with things. So I put a ground down of gesso and a nice ground of cadmium yellow medium hue. And I don't often use yellow for some reason in the background, but it's quite an interesting technique. And as I said, this is an experimental piece, a fun piece, so it's about just having playtime. Now I'm lucky because I've got quite a lot of resources here at home because I do art all the time. If you haven't got resources at home, you can think naturally. There are things that you can use to create artworks. So collage, you may have magazines, you may have newspapers. People have worked on newspaper with biro. Whatever you have, wallpaper paste or flour and water and cut out stuff, coloured paper, collage of materials, leaves from your garden, those sort of things you can use. Just think outside the square. You don't have to have the acrylics and all that sort of stuff that you'll have an idea that I have at the moment. I'm just in a very fortunate position to have that here. So I will just reset the camera so it's looking at the canvas, and I will do the first process. So here we are. I'm going to create a background. I've been thinking about this for a while. I think I'm going to be doing a seascape and a skyscape together, but under seascape. So basically we're going to go halfway up, roughly halfway up, with the sea, and so we're seeing into the sea, so it's under the sea. So there's going to be a horizon line around about here, and then the sky. And that will give me the best options for adding things, so I can either go into the sea or into the sky and keep things a little bit varied that way, and then just gives me a greater range of options. As I told you before, I use golden paints. These are fantastic paints. And today I'm going to be using white, obviously using white. That's the number one, and I'm hoping that's going to last me a while until this is over. Payne's grey and cerulean blue chromium and a little bit of viridian green hue. These are just an odd bunch of colours, and I don't know why I want to just play with those today, but we shall see how it works. So I've also got the golden satin glazing liquid. I may work with that over the surface as well, so this shouldn't take much more than half an hour or so to do. I've got 2 big brushes. One I tend to keep dry. These ones, this one's an actually expensive one from, well, it's expensive, it's about 30 bucks from Warehouse Stationers, and it's lasted me a heap of time, but I've had to glue that thing back in again. And this is a cheap one from Warehouse Stationers. You can see that they tend to crack a little bit, but it does the trick. If you're just blending, whilst it's wet, you can just blend that with a dry brush. It does a really good trick. And then I've got various other collection of little brushes that I'll work with a little later on. So trusty food trays as a palette. I do tend to, at this stage I tend to work on the canvas directly, so it can take a wee while to dry. So I'm going to just put a bit of the glazing medium down too, so it's makes things flow a little bit better. And I'm going to create two gradients. So I'm going to create a gradient from here up to here, so it's light to dark up here, and from here light to dark. So as the sea gets deeper, it gets darker. So that's the kind of illusion I want to create there. So first things I will do is put down the white. So actually I'll put straight on there. I was going to do that. And then I'm going to put a bit of Payne's Grey, just a smidgen. And, oh, wrong one that's open. And as Bob Ross would say, I'll probably put some happy little clouds in there a little bit later on as well. Oh, I wonder if I should put that in. Just a little bit of red in there, just to warm the sky up and give it a bit more texture. Now, remember, I've got yellow ground here, so anything I put on here is going to change. I won't get a red. I'm going to get probably a browny colour. I'm going to get a kind of greeny colour with the Payne's Grey. And any blues on there are definitely going to get green on there. So that's okay. I don't mind that. I like working with that. So I'm going to just move that out of the way. And I am going to sweep over with a big brush. And I'm going to pick it up and move it across. Get all these out of the way. I like working flat when it's these kind of sweeping motions. It just means the canvas isn't moving around as much. If I had it on an easel, it would be tending to slip. So it looks at the moment, but that's okay. It will come through. Because the white will lighten things up. And I'll just keep going and going and going. And as you can see, I'm kind of creating a natural horizon line there. But keep the angle right, because make sure it's evenish. Keep going. You can see how fast I'm moving. And sometimes the canvas has paint on the edges. So it just builds up as a kind of glocky thing on the edge. So just pick it off and bring it over again. I tend to like just to put paint on there and see what happens with it. I know what's going to happen roughly, but I might get too dark a sky, I might get a lighter sky, and then I'll work with that. Oh, a little bit of blotch there of Payne's Grey. So it's coming along quite nicely. And you can see the lumps and bumps in it from the previous paintings. There's quite a few on this canvas. I don't throw canvases away ever, I just recycle them and just use them again, just as I said, a bit of a practice run. I've got nothing to lose, I can paint over it again if it doesn't work. All I've lost is a little bit of acrylic paint and time. But at the moment we've got plenty of time, haven't we? So just keep going, and you notice it's starting to really smooth out now, and occasionally you get that stuff happening, so I might just pick up a brush and take the edge of that, just another brush, just to take any build up of paint off the edge so it doesn't go to clunk on there. Just check with my brush. So that red's given it a really warm kind of almost sunsetty feel to it, or sunrise, whichever way you want to look at it. Yeah, that's pretty good. What I might do is just lighten up the bottom of it, because it's actually becoming quite a single tone, and so I want to make sure that I do get a gradient thing happening. So I'm just adding a bit more white. And these sort of canvases, it really doesn't make any difference if you make a mistake. It's because everything you're learning from. And I quite like doing that just for the sake of it, because it will always inform the next painting. So let's line that up a bit more. I've got a little bit of streaking in there, which I can take off with probably this brush here. So this is didn't have any paint on it at all. I'm just brushing it over the whole surface, and it kind of helps take the streaks up. You can only do it for so long because it starts picking up its own paint and starts moving and creating streaks of its own. So, and this sort of weather is not drying very quickly, which is a good thing when you want to move the paint around on the surface. Right. So now what I want to do is create a little bit of create the sea. or the water. It doesn't have to be sea, it can be just a lake, couldn't it really? So I'm going to now use the same colour that I've had on my brush. I'm not going to add anything to it, but I'm going to add, sorry, I'm going to add a bit more. I'm going to add a bit more white, and I'm going to add a little bit of the Viridian green, just to see what that does. That might be quite an interesting colour. A lot of white there. And then I'm going to just create my horizon line. Oops. And just come up a bit because I've got a bit of paint breaking away there. So, and now I'm going to add a bit more green down the bottom. And it's probably a bit too much green, but oh no, actually no, I don't mind that. That horizon line doesn't have to be perfect because the seas they have waves in them, so you can have a little bit of a rippling effect happening. I'm going to come back on top of that in a minute and create a bit more white. And you keep it nice and smooth, and you're limiting the colour. Yeah, a bit more white. And I've got a nice dot of paint there, which I won't be tempted to move. I think I might just paint something over that a little bit later on. It's just a splash of paint, which is going to, if I take it off, I'm going to ruin that sky texture. And then just bring it down into the gradient thing. And I might just, yeah, that's okay. That's alright. Just check that horizon, because one thing that does bug me if the horizon lines are a little bit, if they go slope one way or the other. I don't mind them in the middle, but if they slope one way to the other, that really bugs me. So that one needs to go a bit, I think, doesn't it? Oh yeah. So that is there. Might be helpful if I'd left done the thing there. Yeah, so just a bit more white. And notice how I've left that white pure on the edge, because you kind of, when if you had a camera there in the ocean, you kind of create it would have a little bit of a lip where the ocean is, and that's kind of worked really well. So I might just kind of tidy things up a bit, add a little bit of the blue to the bottom of that green, just to darken it off a bit. Actually, I might go Payne's Grey. There we go, Payne's Grey. So I'm starting to take the paint away from the canvas now, put it into palettes, or these takeaway trays in this case, because I just want a bit more control about what I'll put on there and when. So the Payne's Grey will just darken that bit off a bit more. Sometimes yellow comes through in different areas, and when it dries it will probably come through a little bit more. But it's about, at this stage, just getting layers in there. I'm also tempted to put a few clouds in there, happy little clouds, because the paint is wet and you can get some of that paint in the sky into the clouds. But I might just, I haven't really quite worked out what I'm going to do with that yet, but we'll get to that in a second. Just working on the sea. So definitely getting that kind of eerie feeling of the sea going deeper and deeper in here, which is what I want. And I think I'm going to put some clouds in because I like that idea. So that's pretty much the sea done, I think. That'll do. I might come back a little bit later and put it, oh no, I'll do it now. What the heck, I'll do it now. Yeah, just to lighten up a bit more. And I don't necessarily mind getting the streaks so much in the water. You kind of would get bands of different tone, I would think. A bit more paint's going down here. Painting's always about adjusting, just moving things back and forth and getting different effects with tone and colour. So frankly, I don't think that sky matches the sea at all, but that's okay. I'm going to come back and may do a glaze over that in a moment. But what I'm going to do before I do that is I'm going to put the clouds in, because I think that's important at this stage. So I'm going to just stick that in there, and I'm going to use a square brush. Probably this one here. And around on there as well, maybe. Let's see. No, this one's quite a long bristle one, and my brushes are pretty knackered. They always are. I tend to work them to death. So I'm just going to put a few clouds in, and you notice how the yellow comes through too. That's kind of a nice effect. And this is first draft, and actually give me the opportunity to get rid of that dot. That's bugging me. First effect, and you know my rules about clouds. Please don't put 3 clouds in the sky. That's 1, 2, 3. That's what you tend to do when you start out. But I always tend to go off the edge of the canvas, and if you guys know, I say this all the time, I tend to go off the canvas because it creates the illusion of the sky wrapping around you anyway. So I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to come back on those clouds a little bit later on anyway, because I want to highlight some of those tops and put some more shadow in the bottom. So that might be after this lot is dried. So, and a little bit of and I'm going to just create a little bit of stuff over there. I'm running out of whites, and I'm a very lazy painter. I don't like pouring out more paint because I'm more than likely end up wasting it all. So I'll do that now because I'm going to have to do the highlights a little bit later. If it was one of those 25 to 30 degree days, I'd be really hesitant about pouring out more paint at this stage because it'll dry before I have a chance to put the highlights on. It's actually quite a good day to do this stuff. Pretty rough night last night with the rain, and we had a little bit of a roof failure and just by my studio, so a huge pool of water in the doorway of my studio, which is a bit of a pain. I can't do anything about because I need to get on the roof, and I probably will need some silicone, and I think I know what it'll be, but I haven't got those. So that'll do for that, I think. So I might have a fiddle around a bit more in a bit, but I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to come back. I tend to, I'll go and clean my brushes, give that a good half hour, 3/4 an hour to dry, and then I might come back and do some highlights. So today's mission is basically to get the background. Tomorrow I am going to start putting things in it. Thank you very much, and have a nice rest of the day.